The year was 1857, an age when global trade had reached its peak. England was now a thriving part of this international exchange, importing spices and silks from distant lands. But one fateful day, a French ship brought with it something far more sinister than silk or saffron, a deadly zombie virus. It slipped into England like a shadow and spread like wildfire. Within weeks, thousands were dead, and worse, had risen again as flesh-hungry undead. To protect themselves, the survivors turned to the east, studying the brutal martial arts of China and Japan. Blades replaced guns. Discipline replaced fear. These were no longer just people, they were warriors. To hold the line, the British Crown ordered the construction of a colossal wall around London, later known as the Grand Barrier. Towering 100 feet tall and encircled by a deep trench, it was meant to divide the world of the living from the infected horrors beyond. The land between the wall and trench came to be known as the Dead Belt, a blood-soaked no-man's land where skirmishes with the undead were daily and deadly. But during the Second Battle of Cutbridge, a terrible mistake occurred. One of the bridges collapsed. The zombies poured through, slaughtering every last human in that zone. The king, already half-mad with grief, gave a chilling order: destroy all bridges, save one. Let no creature, living or dead, ever pass again. And so the rich abandoned the capital, fleeing to isolated estates fortified like castles. One such noble, Colonel Darcy, arrived at an aristocratic manor in Hertfordshire. A report had surfaced. Someone there had been bitten. The residents now lived underground in lavish bunkers. As soon as Darcy stepped in, he was searched and scanned. Then he met the estate's matriarch, Lady Featherstone. Darcy laid out his reason for coming, but Lady Featherstone firmly denied that anyone was infected. But she forgot one crucial fact: a newly infected host doesn't show symptoms until they claim their first victim. Darcy was prepared. He had brought with him a pouch of special flies, creatures trained to detect rot. When he released them, they buzzed through the air and landed directly on Lord Featherstone's face. Darcy didn't hesitate. He shattered a glass and plunged it into the infected noble's throat. It was too late. The infection had already spread throughout the manor. Meanwhile, not far from there, a man named Mr. Bennet lived in seclusion with his wife and 5 daughters in a fortified estate. All 5 daughters were trained in Shaolin martial arts, warriors in their own right, beautiful, deadly, and disciplined. But their mother was far less concerned about the undead. She was worried about something far more terrifying: marriage. Just then, word arrived. Captain Bingley, a famed zombie hunter, had returned victorious from the Dead Belt. He and his sisters were to attend a celebration that night at Lady Featherstone's manor. Mrs. Bennet saw this as fate, an opportunity. She persuaded her husband to take their daughters to the gathering, hoping one of them might catch the eye of a wealthy suitor. The sisters dressed not like debutantes, but like warriors preparing for battle. Among them, the eldest, Elizabeth, had no interest in marriage or aristocratic games. But out of respect for her mother's wishes, she joined the group. That evening, Captain Bingley arrived, flanked by his elegant sisters and Colonel Darcy himself. The hall buzzed with music and admiration. Bingley was immediately enchanted by Jane, the second eldest Bennet daughter. Without wasting a second, he asked her to dance. They twirled across the floor, lost in joy. But in the shadows, Darcy stood still, arms crossed, face cold, whispering quietly to Bingley's sisters. Watching from a distance, Elizabeth drifted closer, just in time to overhear Darcy whisper to Bingley, "Jane's sister? She's rather plain." Honestly, no man with taste would find her appealing. Elizabeth's heart sank. It was a slap in the face. Her expression hardened, and she stormed away in silent fury. As she turned the corner, she came face to face with Lady Featherstone, now fully turned into a zombie. Before Elizabeth could react, Lady Featherstone rasped, "I need to tell you something, a great secret." But before she could finish, Darcy arrived and drove a blade straight through her skull, silencing her forever. Whatever truth she was about to reveal, it died with her. Suddenly, chaos erupted inside the hall. Zombies had breached the estate. Panic swept the crowd. But instead of fleeing, the 5 Bennet sisters sprang into action, leaping into the fray like whirlwinds of steel and fury. It wasn't just a fight, it was a massacre. Swords clashed, heads rolled, and the once elegant ballroom was soaked in undead blood. Watching Elizabeth slice through the horde with grace and precision, Darcy's heart changed. In that moment, he saw not just a warrior, but the woman he'd been searching for. But it was too late. He had already insulted her. To Elizabeth, Darcy was nothing more than a prideful snob, someone she would never forgive, let alone consider as a suitor. Still, her sisters weren't ready to give up. They loved the idea of Elizabeth and Darcy together. It was the talk of the house. Meanwhile, Jane received a letter from Bingley inviting her over for tea. Mrs. Bennet saw this as an opportunity of a lifetime. Despite the heavy rain and muddy roads, she sent Jane to Bingley's manor. But fate had other plans. On the road, Jane's horse was startled by a lurking zombie and threw her off, galloping away in fear. Jane pulled out her pistol, but it misfired, exploding in her hand. Injured but not broken, she grabbed a knife and charged at the zombie. After a bloody struggle, she managed to kill it. Just then, she spotted an infected woman, cradling a zombie infant. The mother lunged at Jane with animalistic rage. Back at home, the Bennets grew worried. Jane had been gone for over a day. Elizabeth rushed to the manor, only to learn Jane had returned, but she was gravely ill. Darcy arrived soon after with a doctor. Suspicious, he released his trained flies into the air, and they landed on Jane. He prepared his knife, ready to strike, but Elizabeth stepped in. She caught the flies herself, refusing to let Darcy harm her sister. Moments later, the doctor concluded that Jane's injuries weren't from a bite. Her hand had been burned by the pistol explosion. She would recover. When Jane's mother came to bring her home, Bingley took the moment to propose marriage. It was a moment of joy for the Bennet family, but Darcy was not pleased. He tried to warn Bingley, claiming this wasn't the time for love, especially not amidst such danger. He wasn't wrong. Nearby, an orphanage had recently fallen. All the children inside had turned. As the girls returned home, they were greeted by a strange visitor, their cousin, Mr. Collins. To the sisters, he was a pompous buffoon, but their father delivered troubling news. When he passed, the house and estate would legally pass to Mr. Collins. Why? Because in this world, only male heirs could inherit property. Mr. Collins, as the closest male relative, was their only hope of keeping their home. This foolish cousin wasn't just an annoyance. He was now necessary. Mr. Collins, the pompous royal priest and sole heir to the Bennet estate, had set his sights on marrying Jane. But Mrs. Bennet firmly told him Jane was already intended for Captain Bingley. Still, she had another daughter just as beautiful, Elizabeth. Collins was easily swayed. He agreed to marry Elizabeth instead. But Elizabeth Bennet wasn't one to surrender so easily. Despite her strong protest, her mother forced her to attend Mr. Bingley's party with Collins. On their way, they came across an abandoned carriage, wrecked and bloodied. Suddenly, a woman stumbled out, believing she'd survived a zombie attack. Within seconds, her illusion was shattered. Meanwhile, in anticipation of tonight's celebration, Bingley had summoned soldiers to secure the estate, including a certain Lieutenant Wickham. Wickham was charming, practical, and oozed confidence. But as soon as he saw Darcy and Bingley, his expression darkened. Elizabeth noticed. Later, she asked Wickham about the tension. What he told her changed everything. "My father died fighting in the Second Battle of Kent," Wickham said. "Darcy's father raised me like his own. Before passing, he left me everything in his will. But after he died, Darcy took it all from me. He's a man filled with pride and selfishness. I could have fought back, but out of respect for his father, I walked away." Elizabeth listened, stunned. Her opinion of Wickham changed entirely. She now admired him, and when he invited her to that evening's gathering, she happily agreed. But the evening wasn't as smooth as expected. Just as Elizabeth and Wickham began to bond, Mr. Collins butted in, determined to keep up appearances. Caught in a web of family pressure, Elizabeth reluctantly danced with him. Wickham stepped back. Darcy watched it all from afar. He was silently hoping to win Elizabeth's heart. Then another twist emerged. Darcy was the royal nephew of Queen Catherine herself, a secret known only to a few. Collins, of course, was one of them. But even that royal connection couldn't sway Elizabeth's heart. To her, Darcy was nothing but a selfish, arrogant man. The party spiraled into more drama when Mrs. Bennet, drunk beyond control, loudly blurted out, "Once Jane marries Bingley, we'll all be rich." Darcy overheard everything. Now he began to doubt Jane's intentions. Was she truly in love with Bingley? Or was it all about money? Meanwhile, chaos brewed elsewhere. Jane's younger sister had gone missing. Elizabeth searched the halls and wandered toward the kitchen, only to find Bingley panicking. His chef had just been dragged away by zombies. Elizabeth rushed to calm him, but before she could react, another zombie snatched Bingley and dragged him toward the stairs. Elizabeth fought back, saving him just in time. To her horror, the zombies were none other than the infected orphans from the local shelter. One of them revealed something shocking. "Your friend is with us. He showed us the way in." Before he could name names, Darcy arrived, slashing through the horde and tossing their corpses into the furnace. But in the frenzy, Darcy mistakenly assumed Bingley had been infected and prepared to strike him down. Elizabeth screamed just in time. "He's not infected. He just fell down the stairs." Darcy hesitated. Bingley was spared. But now the manor was compromised. The once safe estate was no longer secure. Still, Bingley refused to leave. Leaving meant parting from Jane, and he wasn't ready for that. So Darcy offered a solution. He pretended he needed to visit his sister and insisted Bingley come along. Soon after, Bingley's sister sent Jane a letter. When Elizabeth read it, she feared Bingley might forget Jane in the luxury of royal life. But Jane remained hopeful. She had faith in their love. The next morning, another storm was brewing, this time inside the Bennet home. Mr. Collins, emboldened by his sense of duty, proposed marriage to Elizabeth, but she refused. She didn't believe in marrying without love. Her father supported her. "I won't force you," he said. But her mother, furious. The house echoed with arguments. Unable to bear the tension, Elizabeth stormed out, heading alone into the forest. Back in the Bennet household, Elizabeth's rejection of Mr. Collins led him to quickly propose to the third daughter. Surprisingly, this time the proposal was accepted. Meanwhile, Elizabeth encountered Wickham deep in the woods. That night, he had left the party early after seeing her with Collins. Elizabeth clarified that she only danced with Collins to satisfy her mother. Wickham saw his chance and took her to a mysterious location. They arrived at an abandoned church. Inside, infected people were being fed soup made from animal brains. It was horrifying. Elizabeth was shocked. Wickham explained, "A zombie doesn't fully turn until it consumes human brains. This soup keeps them on the edge. Hungry, yes, but not monsters. This way, they can survive without hurting others." It was radical, but not illogical. Together, they decided to present this idea to Queen Catherine. Mr. Collins, a priest in her court, arranged the meeting. For Wickham, this was a dream come true, meeting royalty. But the Queen laughed. "Zombies living alongside humans? Impossible," she said. Wickham argued, "Half of London is already infected. One wise decision could stop the war." But the royal court rejected him outright. That night, Elizabeth couldn't sleep. She wandered the halls and was startled to find Wickham waiting for her. He confessed his feelings, but Elizabeth cut him off. "Stay in your limits." Wickham changed tactics. He planted doubt. "Did you know Darcy was the one who broke Jane and Bingley apart?" he whispered. "He told Bingley your sister was only after his money." Elizabeth's blood boiled. The next morning, Darcy came to her with a marriage proposal. She rejected him instantly, accusing him of destroying her sister's happiness. Angrily, she attacked him. Their fight was fierce. Their shirts torn, hearts raw. Between the chaos, she demanded, "Did you really tell Bingley that we're all gold diggers?" Darcy answered quietly, "I heard it from your mother." He added, "I didn't do it for money. I did it to protect Bingley." Jane was infected. And Wickham? His tale of stolen inheritance was a lie. Darcy had given him wealth, which Wickham squandered in gambling and parties. After repeated demands for more money, Darcy finally severed ties. Elizabeth's world spun. Everything she believed was wrong. She felt ashamed, and she cried. A few days later, she received a letter from Darcy. In it, he poured out the truth, his heartbreak, and things he could never say to her face. He had accepted that Elizabeth might never return his love. Meanwhile, London was collapsing. A giant horde of zombies had broken through the Grand Barrier. Their strength had multiplied 100-fold. The Queen's plan now was to seal London completely. If she failed, Hertfordshire would be next. But more disaster loomed. Elizabeth's younger sister, Lydia, had been kidnapped by Wickham and held captive in St. Lazarus, a stronghold of the undead. Wickham sent a message, "If you dare, come and take her." Elizabeth and Jane set out at once. They soon met Darcy and told him everything. But Darcy lied. "St. Lazarus was destroyed 4 days ago," he said. "Your sister is gone." The truth. Darcy didn't want Elizabeth to risk her life, so he went alone. He took with him the brains of 7 fallen comrades, hoping to use them in one final act of redemption. But it was a trap. Wickham had lured Darcy here, knowing he would come for Lydia. Yet capturing Darcy wouldn't be easy. He was prepared, armed, determined, and ready to face the undead, and a man who once called himself a brother. Darcy had a plan. He fed the stolen brains to the dormant zombies in the prison, unleashing chaos. The infected turned feral instantly. Amidst the bloodshed, Darcy freed Lydia and ordered her to ride across the Hingham Bridge before sunrise. Then, he turned to face the traitor, Wickham. It was Wickham who had secretly led the zombie hordes into London. He was the one who guided them to the party that night. Now, Darcy and Wickham clashed in a brutal fight among the ruins. Meanwhile, Elizabeth had learned the truth. Darcy had lied to protect her. Realizing this, she rushed to find him. As she arrived near the bridge, she saw Lydia galloping back to safety, but Darcy was nowhere in sight. Panic struck her heart. Sunrise was near. The bridge would be destroyed at any moment. Back at the battleground, Darcy finally pierced Wickham's chest with his sword, but it wasn't enough. Wickham had already been infected. He rose again, stronger than ever. Just when Darcy was about to fall, Elizabeth arrived. Together, they fought Wickham side by side, until, with one final strike, they ended his undead reign. But their fight wasn't over. The sun rose. Bingley, stationed at the bridge, had waited as long as he could. With no sign of Darcy or Elizabeth, he gave the tragic order to destroy the bridge. Just as the charges exploded and flames roared across the structure, Darcy and Elizabeth emerged from the smoke. Miraculously, they survived. In the end, both couples were reunited. Darcy married Elizabeth. Bingley married Jane. Love triumphed, even in a world torn apart by monsters, and that's where this epic tale ends. Let us know in the comments how you liked this beautifully twisted, action-packed story of honor, love, and zombie apocalypse. If you want more such bold and emotional horror romance stories, hit that like button and subscribe to Scaryverse. See you in the next recap. Until then, stay safe, stay alive.